This week we're going over the depressive disorders and the bipolar disorders. Get out your DSMs, open up to those sections, and let's get to it. So I found on PowerPoint it says recommended ideas, and I've got some new slides, right? So shiny, so bright. Depressive and bipolar disorders. So these are two separate sections. I'm just going to combine them because they have a very common element that we're going to go over. So depressive disorders include major depressive disorder, aka depression or major depression, dysthymic disorder, disruptive mood dysregulation, and premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And the bipolar disorders include bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and cyclothymic. And again, remember, the goal is not to memorize every single one or every single criteria, but rather to understand that there's a section for low mood and a section for moods that go up and down. So, mood disorders are made of mood episodes. A mood episode is a period of time where a person feels exceptionally happy, agitated, or sad. It's an extreme up or an extreme down, right? And so a mood disorder is a pattern of those mood episodes. So you're probably already seeing where this is going, right? Major depressive disorder would be a depressive episode. Bipolar would probably have a manic episode, right? And then we specify the most recent. We're always focused on the most recent episode, right? What was it, up, down, and the severity? So, with that said, let's go over these mood episodes. Now, I should take this out. The DSM no longer recognizes the mixed episode, but I'll go over that in a minute. So, we have our major depressive episode, and it's just like it sounds. So, this is from your DSM. Let's break it down. We got 5 or more of the symptoms present during the same 2 weeks. Right? That is our window that represent a change from previous functioning. At least one of the symptoms is either depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure, also known as apathy, right? So let's go through this. You need to have at least 5 of these 9. And you have to have 1 or 2. Depressed mood most of the day, nearly every day, as indicated by subjective report or observation made from others. So during this 2-week, 3-week, 1-month episode, maybe they do have a day where the symptoms alleviate, but then they're right back to it. Just because a person has one good day doesn't mean, it's not this, get rid of it. Any more than just because a person has one bad day means they immediately have depression. Diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities, right? Anytime you have a situation where a client switches very objectively, very markedly, switches from liking something, it is always a red flag. Now, what is it a red flag for? It could be a couple of different things. In this context, we're talking about depression. But say, for example, you're working with a child who they're really into Pokemon. And this is a real client of mine. Really into Pokemon, has all the cards, has the posters, has the getup, the stuffed animals, every whole 9 yards. This kid was going to be a Pokemon trainer one way or the next. And then one day he just stopped. There was no tapering. People's interests change over time, right? They wax and wane. When it just kind of jumps off, like it just hits a brick wall, that's a problem. In his case, some kids at school really teased him in such a way that it cut like right to the core. So then he, call you're a baby and things like that. And so he, just ditched all the Pokemon stuff, right? So in this case, it was a red flag for, he was really in turmoil and things like that. For people who are like, I'm an avid gym goer, I'm an avid cyclist, or I love the movies, and then it goes to a place of, who cares? No. I'm just not into it. When it happens like that, and if you didn't hear it, I snapped my fingers, it's a red flag. Significant weight loss or weight gain, or a decrease or increase in appetite. So an appetite change, essentially, or weight change. Because when people feel depression, they wind up eating more or eating less. They're eating more to self-soothe. They're eating less because the appetite goes away, right? Insomnia or hypersomnia, right? So I'm not sleeping at all, or I'm sleeping a lot more. Psychomotor agitation, right? So fidgeting a lot, pacing. Fatigue or loss of energy, right? Remember that commercial where it said depression hurts? That's what happens. A person has a hard time getting out of bed. Sometimes it's mood related, like what's the point? It's the end of the world. And other times they feel so drained they can't get out. Feelings of worthlessness, right? Who cares? No one will miss me. Or excessive or inappropriate guilt, right? Which is they make a mistake and then they feel horrible about it. Diminished ability to think or concentrate, indecisiveness, and part of that is, fear of I'm going to make the wrong thing. This is going to make a big mess. And other times it's the apathy, the indecisiveness comes from I don't care because it doesn't matter. And then the biggest red flag: recurrent thoughts about death and suicidal ideation, right? And if there's a plan, that's doubly so. So 5 or more of these, with at least one of those 5 being 1 or 2, right? 1 and or 2, right? 2 weeks, that's what we need. So having it for a day, while notable, doesn't make the major depressive episode. A manic episode, right? So this is on the opposite end of the spectrum. Abnormally and persistently elevated, expansive, or irritable mood. A lot of times the media shows mania as being high, being happy. Think of how we use it in everyday nomenclature, right? It's, now I'm blanking on the examples, of course, but it's, video game mania or barbecue mania, right? So it's stuff that's usually said like it's exciting, it's happy, and on TV it'll show the person feeling really good, or like they have superpowers, and that does happen. But it can also be irritability and anger, right? It says abnormally and persistently increased goal-directed activity or energy, right? So this is where the person says, I'm going to write a whole novel. I'm going to remodel my kitchen by myself, right? It lasts 1 week, nearly every day. And then if hospitalization is needed at all, it doesn't matter how long it is. During the period of the mania, there are 3 or more of the following symptoms. 4 if the mood is only irritable. Inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, right? So I am not diagnosing anybody, but Kanye West, right? So that's what the news has been saying, that he's experiencing a bipolar episode or a manic episode, and he's running for president and saying all these things, right? That he's going to do all this. And remember, it's episodic. That's what would separate it from maybe like narcissism. Decreased need for sleep, right? So they're either not sleeping at all or they're getting very minimal sleep. And it shows, the energy is there. Very talkative, pressure to keep talking. So I'm going to get this out. It's almost like if I don't get it out, the world's going to end. Flight of ideas, or they feel like their thoughts are racing, so they're bouncing all over the place. There's some attention problems, very distracted, increased goal-directed activity. So this can be at work, at school. They put sexual in, which can happen, but there's lots of different things. It could also be, so they could do something productive or proactive, right? They say, I'm gonna till my yard and I'm gonna fertilize it and aerate it and all that. Other times it can be sort of nonsensical, right? Like I'm gonna call every world leader and things like that. But they're doing something, or psychomotor agitation. So they're just kind of pinging, they're bouncing all over the place, right? Have you ever seen a child that was like overtired, right? They just sort of twirl all over the place, going from activity to activity. It's non-goal directed, right? So they hear me. They do not. It's an option. It's either goal directed or it's purposeless, non-goal directed activity, but they're moving all over the place. Excessive involvement in activities that have a high potential for painful consequences, right? So, promiscuity, drug use, shopping, getting into fights, doing stuff like, I bet I could jump off this roof and not break a bone. I bet I could cross this train track before the train comes, right? So, 3 or more of the following. And remember, don't be put off if you see someone and it's like they have this high energy, but they're like angry or they're upset or frustrated, and it's not happiness, right? And then hypomanic, which there are going to be some of you who maybe have not heard of a hypomanic episode. I certainly did not until I started studying psychology and counseling and stuff like that. So here, this is like a manic episode, but it's a little less. So it lasts at least 4 consecutive days, right? Consecutive days. And read this. It sounds just like a manic episode. Abnormally elevated, expansive, or irritable mood, increased activity and energy. 3 or more of the following. And change from the usual behavior. Inflated self-esteem, decreased need for sleep, talkative, flight of ideas, distractibility, increase in goal-driven activity, or psychomotor agitation and involvement in potentially dangerous situations. So a hypomanic episode is less severe most often and is shorter in duration. So to kind of put it together, these different episodes, here's a chart that I always thought was really neat. Excuse me. So here down at the bottom we have depression. Up at the top we have a manic episode. And in the middle here, this white area is euthymia, right? This is normal. So if we look at depression, which is this green dotted line, right? They go from their normal, feeling okay. Then we dip down here for 2 weeks. And we come back up. And that alone, if this is 2 weeks, qualifies them for a diagnosis of major depressive disorder or major depression. Then they can come back out and maybe they have another one. So it's recurrent, right? Bipolar disorder, right? Manic episode, we're all the way at the top. They go down, up, down, up, down, up, right? But we're touching on or in mania. And then hypomania is here, right? So we might have someone who they're okay and they go up here. So less severe, shorter duration, and down here, right? So the takeaway here is to make this little chart of manics at the top, depressives at the bottom. There's a range that's to be expected, normal, right? And I know that's kind of a loaded term. But staying in here, people have ups and downs. It's when a person goes into hypomania, mania, or depression that we start looking at a diagnosis. So let's talk then about major depressive disorder, right? For this diagnosis, you have experienced a major depressive episode, right? So let's go back, right? The green line here, right? When we're in here, major depressive episode. Remember, that means we have those symptoms for at least 2 weeks. No history of manic or hypomanic episodes. So if a person says, yeah, I had a manic episode or a few manic episodes, 6 months ago, a year ago, then we're already crossing this off. Ask about grief and context, right? When you were down here, what was going on? Well, I lost my job and one of my parents passed away. Well, do you really want to diagnose them with depression or do you want to treat them for grief, Coding, right? So coding for, and I start with this section because this is one of the more complicated ones. So for depression, we would specify mild, moderate, severe, with psychotic features, in partial remission or in full remission. If it's just one episode, like this is the first and only time they have, these are the codes that we use. If it's their second or more episode, then these are the codes we use. So this individual, right, when he's here, right, he came in for treatment here. Right now, this is a single episode, right, single episode. When this happened, it became recurrent. With psychotic features, and you see that for each of these, you kind of got to bounce around in the DSM, but just for the depressive and bipolar disorders. When you go to page 186, it'll explain to you that they are hearing voices or believing things that are not true, right? They're either having hallucinations, right? So they might hear voices saying, kill yourself, nobody likes you, you're worthless. Or delusions, which is everybody hates me, when that's not true, right? Or there's evidence to the contrary. And partial remission means that they had a full-blown depression diagnosis, and then some of the symptoms went away. In full remission means they had the full diagnosis, and now no symptoms are there. An unspecified would be it doesn't fit in any of these categories. And then you would specify with anxious distress, and I'm going to let you guys look these up on the 184 area. With anxious distress, so do they have anxiety? Like, I'm going to fail, I'm going to let everybody down. Mixed features, right? So they have kind of a grab bag of all of these. Melancholic features, right? There's a malaise, nothing matters. Atypical features, so they don't fit in. They have stuff they have depression, but they have high energy, maybe. Here are the psychotic features. Mood congruent. What do you think that means? Mood congruent is, I have depression, and I hear voices that say, you're worthless, you suck, nobody likes you. Those psychotic features are congruent. They match my mood. Mood incongruent psychotic features would be, I feel worthless, I feel like I suck, I hate myself, and I hear voices that, or I believe that I have maybe special powers, or I hear voices that keep telling me not to kill myself. Catatonia is there stupor, lack of communicative skills, waxy posing, right? Like, are they catatonic? Peripartum onset is what we used to call postpartum depression. And seasonal pattern is seasonal affective disorder, right? So it happens in the winter, right, or a different season. Persistent depressive disorder, right? Dysthymia, right? You might hear those different terms. Dysthymia is a less severe but longer lasting depression. So the timeline for this is 2 years. 2 years for adults and 1 year for kids or teens. And this usually gets labeled as the person is like a downer, they're a Debbie Downer, or they're always complaining, or they're no fun, or they just they kind of have a darker personality. Remember the show Daria from MTV, right? Kind of like that. Disruptive mood dysregulation. So this is a new diagnosis to the DSM. A person is angry most of the time, observably, right? Like, other people can say, yeah, that kid looks angry. He's got a bone to pick today. Has severe recurrent outbursts that are seen in at least 2 settings, right? So at school and at home, at church and at work, right? In these different areas. And this is the one where they have an outburst of anger that is not developmentally appropriate, right? So we don't think it's like a child throwing a tantrum. And it's disproportionate to the cause, right? So I gave that example in one of the previous videos of you went out to eat and you ordered a Diet Coke and they brought you Sprite. And so like you flip your table over and start screaming, right? That's disproportionate. What this really is a developmentally inappropriate temper tantrum, right? And so this is, we would expect temper tantrums to go away with age. You're asking for details, right? If someone came up to you and called you like a racial slur or shoved you or got in your face, like really provoked you and you reacted out of anger, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about there's a small slight, if any, right? Like, I don't like that this guy parked so close to my car, and so you key his car, right? That's what this is. This is also new to the DSM, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. So 5 or more symptoms that cause significant impairment or distress, with symptoms presenting in the final week of menses, of the menstrual cycle. They improve after the onset of menses. So as a person's period starts, the symptoms start to alleviate and then completely fade away when the period ends. And these can be emotional volatility, irritability, depressed mood, physical pain, anxiety, fear, things like that. But it revolves around a woman's menstrual cycle. So I'm going to stop there for right now. On depression, break these up into 2 different videos. Let me know if you have... Oh man, where's my camera? Let me know if you have any questions. Review the criteria in your DSM, right? Look at them. Don't go just off of this video, but go back. You should have your DSM with you while you're watching this, and I'm sure you do. But go and look at the criteria for the different disorders for depression and kind of get familiar with it and see if you have any questions. If you do or you have any thoughts or concerns, let me know, and I am going to make a separate video right now for bipolar. Hope all is well, and I'll talk to you in just a few minutes. Bye.